third session of the new season of Quran study with Dr. Yamina and you. Last time, Dr. Ali presented and she explored with us the question of what is our goal with the Quran, why the Quran, and why do we want to go with the Quran in a personal level, in a very kind of focused way. We got the chance to reflect on what is it that our need is for the Quran. And then we ended with a question. Yamina and Ali, they invited us to reflect on this question of why is it that we can't align ourselves with our perception of what the Quran is? Why can we not be fully committed to being an addressee of this divine message? What is it that is keeping us from a full, serious commitment? So I guess we will start with that question. Dr. Yamina, please correct me if you wanted to do it a bit differently.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, inshallah, let's start with sharing our reflections about the question that we left with last week, inshallah, because it was an interesting question. Well, maybe you can remind us again of the question.
So as I recall, the question was that given that we do have an existential need for the Quran, we realize that the most important question for us, and not just an intellectual question, but a very deep question that connects to our very being, is who am I? And the Quran answers that question in a way that's convincing, that resonates with us. So the question was that then, therefore, why don't we find ourselves more committed to exploring the Quran and living with the Quran? As far as I recall, the question was something like this, right?
Yes, that was the question, correct.
Okay, so is there anybody who would like to share any reflections?
Okay, I'll get started. Then people, hopefully everyone will share. So as I was through the week, planning or trying to plan time for the time that I want to devote to, I call it my time, devoting my time with the Quran, my time. I kept as I'm prioritizing that my time, the Quran is, I consider it as my time, something for me that's helping me, that is benefiting me. And as I was prioritizing, I always found everything else that I'm doing more urgent. So even if it's not as important, but everything else that came in front of me seemed to be urgent, needs to be taken care of right now, here and now, right now. And I will postpone it, keep postponing. The only time that I would not postpone is the time that I have made time with someone else, with our own Charlottesville Halakha group. Then we meet. So today, we had our meeting. Last week so these times that we meet, these times before those meetings, then I sit down and prepare for these meetings. And in the meetings, we're devoting the time. But throughout the week, I found that I made everything else an urgent and something that's urgent that I just take care of right away, then come to what I want to do. And so I know that's an answer, but it's my lame excuse. So that was mine. I guess urgency. Everything else seemed to be more urgent, not as important, but more urgent to take care of. it's not as deep an answer as Yamina you would want to have, but that's the answer that I have right now.
That's
There is no need to judge whether it's deep or not. We want to assess where we are, inshallah. Not a matter of depth.
and also I don't think we can have a good reason. Yeah, or a profound reason.
Because the whole thing is that it is not a good reason.
Definitely not a good reason.
So nobody's
But we want to be aware of that, to recognize that. Because usually we don't talk about it, and so it's always there, but we never confront that reality.
Hey guys, like I'm sure you must have thought about it. Like,
I can say
please come ahead.
but the warning, Alia won't let us keep quiet for too long. So please, everyone, if you have something to share, please don't be shy. And so in the meantime, I wanted to say that the reason you shared Alia resonates with me as well. I think there's a part of me that thinks, a kind of a detailed, focused study of the Quran is more luxury. That there's, like almost like selfish, like there's so many people out there, they don't even know about God. They don't even, so like if you're going to do something, then you should serve. And as if this is, when you have a chance to attend to yourself. There's that kind of idea comes to me as well. But I noticed an interesting change this week with me since the session. Because one of the things I took from last session was that we needed the Quran. And I think so far, I had gotten things from the Quran that was nurturing me. So I didn't feel always the need to go back every day. But then something happened that I can't quite, put into words. After the last week's halaqah, I felt the need wasn't just a mental need, that it was an emotional and a personal, I don't know how to put this, but I felt like a more genuine need to really hear the Quran. And so when I opened in the mornings, I felt like somebody who's tuning in to what their creator is going to tell them at that moment. And before it was more like, I know the message, I just need to put it into practice. There's life after death and I need to put that into practice. So I didn't necessarily feel that I need to go back and study that. I just need to put that into practice. There are a number of passages that I want to delve more into, but it was more like, it's because they're a bit unclear to me. And someday I will do that. That kept, as I said earlier, like I even if I managed to study, it felt more like, not with the awe that I was hoping for. And then this past week, it has been much different. My other lame excuse is that I also thought this is, what is that called? Occupational hazards. I do teach the Quran in classroom setting as well, as my job is to teach Islamic studies. And there, I have developed a way of distancing myself from the text because I'm supposed to teach it not as my text or a text that I connect with it. I always teach it as a potentially enriching text for outsiders. So I think partly I got that on as well. So in my everyday life, I know I can't always make the switch sometimes. But the other thing I was a bit, to be honest with you, a bit maybe I'll leave that part actually off for now, and let's see how it goes. So. Anyone else?
Well, you cannot after saying the other bit and let go of. I need to hear the other bit. So go ahead.
I mean, the other bit is that coming to this session, I wasn't sure what to expect because everybody has some reason for not committing. And I wasn't sure how we will help each other out by hearing each other's reasons. But maybe it's going to be helpful because I wasn't expecting last halaqah to be so influential either. but it turned out to be very influential. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair for sharing. So we need other people to share. Bismillah. Come on. Bismillah. Should I start reading names like Emel? Would you like to share? What about Huriya? Would you like to share? Okay. Rima, would you like to share?
Not now, maybe later.
But Jazakallah khair for answering. Thank you, Rima, for answering.
We can carry on, and then I'll share my reflections of the week. And whenever anyone feels that something resonates or something comes to their mind, to their heart, please just share, inshallah. Okay?
Inshallah.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So I also reflected on these questions. Many things came to my mind, but I wanted to put them in a way that will benefit all of us. And from what has been shared here, and I'm sure many of our different articulations of whatever the reasons we think we have, as Alia put it, it's a matter of priority. It seems like somehow we don't feel the need to prioritize, to make time for the Quran. In my personal experience, and that's what we want to, inshallah, talk about, not necessarily only this evening, but that's what we do come together on a weekly basis, is to cultivate within us that need. And we talked, Alia talked about the need that we have, and we also emphasize the fact that everyone has those needs. It's only a matter of being aware of the needs or not. And we want to cultivate within ourselves the awareness of our need for this guidance, the guidance of the Quran. Just like, so we will feel the hunger. Just like when we are hungry, we enjoy eating. And so we make time for buying the food, preparing the meal, and the more hungry we are, or the more we appreciate whatever we have in mind that we are going to cook, the whole process is enjoyable. Or drinking, if you're very, very thirsty. So drinking water is something enjoyable. We don't feel it as an extra, or like, now I am thirsty, but who is going to drink water? Inshallah, so we realize what's going on. So when we, it means that we commit to what we value, to what we give importance to what we feel organically connected to. And maybe that means that we are not so convinced about the significance of the Quran to our life. But when Isra pointed to that, when I mean convinced, it's not only, convinced only means intellectually, but it's not only intellectually, but also emotionally. I don't feel the need for it. That's why it seems like an extra. If I do it, it's sawab, it's good, and if it's not, what can we do? We'll ask for forgiveness. That's not how it's supposed to be. But this supposed to be is also something that we need to realize from inside out, not from outside. It's not something that I know when I impose on myself. It's something that will come from within me when I realize something. So we say that we keep either we keep forgetting, or even if we remember, like Alia said, it just feels that I have so many other things to do. So what is it? What is it that if we forget, that we need to keep in mind in order not to fall in that situation? And even when we are not prioritizing, we're not forgetting, but we are not prioritizing, it means something deep down. I'm not talking about a forgetting of an information, but maybe at what point in my life I did feel the need for the guidance of the Quran, a time when I was feeling very low, very needy, very vulnerable. But then I forgot about that vulnerability, about that neediness of mine. And so I'm talking about that kind of forgetting the state of being, not only, this is not forgetting information. Inshallah, if it's not clear, just ask questions. So when we forget those moments, those situations, when we truly felt the need for help, the need for guidance, when we felt in darkness and we felt the need for light, how or what is it that we need to keep in mind in order not to forget those situations? What is it that is missing? Now, when we say forgetting, even in this sense, we're of course assuming, for instance, we forget that God is, if I forget that God is my Rabb, is my sustainer, He's the one who's sustaining my breathing right now, it means I am assuming that I know God. When we talk about forgetting God, it means we're assuming that we already know Him, but we are forgetting. Because if we don't know, then it's not that we are forgetting, it's like we don't know what we're missing. So that's another stage. I'll come back to that, inshallah, if we have time. And for instance, we talk about forgetting about akhirah, about the afterlife. But if I forget about the afterlife, it means I'm assuming that I believe in the afterlife. If someone forgets about afterlife, it means that person really believes in the afterlife. But if I'm not sure about the afterlife, then no wonder I forget about it. But sometimes, just because I know for sure, does not mean that I will remember. There is another step there, something that needs to be done in order to cultivate that remembrance. So let's say we do have Iman, belief in God and Akhirah. Let's say we know God and Akhirah. How come we forget? How come we forget how important this Iman, this belief, this is important in my life? As Isra was reminding us in the beginning, it is that Iman is healing, that Iman answers answers my needs, my existential needs. We talked about this last week, and I think which Khadija Beza mentioned that as well. So how come, although it is so crucial to our most essential existential needs, how come we forget? What does it mean to believe in God and Akhirah? We could say as well. So, as I always like to remind us, believing in God is not the same as having some information about God. We start with that. That's only the beginning. So believing in God has a direct bearing on who we are, and therefore how we live our lives, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world. So for instance, believing in God means believing that He is our provider, our sole provider, the Razzaq. And so if I believe that God, that I have a provider, and that provider, I'm not going into the details now, is a transcendent source of providence and provision, that I have a sustainer, and that's I'm being sustained, and therefore I have a sustainer. So believing this belief is suppose, or this belief, if it is truly my belief, if it is coming from within me, not only an information about what I should be believing, if it is truly a belief, then it's going to shape how I relate to risk, how I relate to provision, and how I relate to the world. For instance, how my gratitude is not going to be directed towards the provision itself, but towards the provider,